Our player can now drive down the road and we can change the speed of its movement. We can even change the speed of its turn. However, if our player is actually playing the game, we don't want to be able to fly off the road, for one, but also, if our player is using like a joystick or something, we can't just be dragging this variable around. We can't do this for a single player, like it's magic behind the scenes. So we're going to create some actual magic so that the player can actually control their own movement. A very helpful thing to know before we get into programming this is understanding that Unity does a lot of things that make our lives a lot easier. So, in fact, if you go to the top left under Edit, or if you're on Mac under Unity, if you go down to Project Settings and you click on that, there's all these options for project settings, but what we really care about is actually our input. So this is actually our input manager in Unity, and they've helpfully already created a way where when you do something, it's already mapped to be able to change that value. So if you left click on the drop down on axes, you can see there's different ones, like there's actually fire button, so you can actually press like the left control button to fire something, or a second option, left alt, left shift. There's a jump, which is the space bar. You can take a look at all of these different options, but what we're looking for specifically are actually these horizontal and vertical axes. And so this is actually how Unity knows if we want it to go left or if we want it to go right. Using these horizontal axes, we can actually see those values change and how they change. You can see that there's inputs for the left arrow key to go negative or the right arrow key to go positive. There's also alternative buttons for using the A key to go negative or the D key to go positive, and it's called the horizontal axis. Knowing this, we can do something really easy to be able to control the player's movement. In our player controller class, first we're going to create a public variable so we can actually watch and see what it's doing. And this will be a float again, and we'll call this horizontal input because this is actually the input that we'll be tracking on our horizontal axis, left or right. And then what we need to do is we actually need to set this variable, which we'll do inside of our code. So we'll actually do this in our update method. So we use our horizontal input, we call our variable, and then we use the equal sign. So we're going to assign this variable some value. And now if you remember that input manager, so there's actually a class and a method that we can call just for that input manager. So if we type capital INPUT, so this is our input manager, it's called input. So now that we have our input manager class, if we type dot, and then we were looking for that axis before, so we can actually use our getAxis method. So this will give us the values for when we press the left or right key on that axis, but we also need to tell it which axis we want to use, and in this case it's asking for the name of our axis, specifically a string. Now a string is a way for your computer or program to create a word that is literally interpreted by the computer and easily understandable for us. So, for example, if I in here actually type in a double quote, you can see it actually auto-completes a double quote for me at the end. So this is creating a string literal inside of these quotes. So it'll literally interpret anything that I put in. I could literally say hello world, which is very helpful if I'm trying to, for example, print something, or I need the program to tell me an error that's happening or something like that. Using string literals can be helpful in that sense. For this, we actually type in the word horizontal because in Unity, in our input manager, the name of our horizontal axis is just horizontal. So now we're getting the input for whenever a player presses the left or right key. And then last but not least, we need to actually go into our translate and multiply this by our horizontal input. So now if you make sure you save, we can close out of our project settings, and let's make sure we select that vehicle so we can actually see what's happening on the horizontal input. Our turn speed is set to 0, so we know that's not going to work. So we'll set it to 1 for now. And then if we press play, so we should see if we press the left arrow key, it slowly moves to the left. If we press the right key, it slowly moves to the right. And we can use the A key too if we want to use the other key. It'll move to the left. If we use our D key, it will slowly move to the right. So we know our input manager is working. You can even see the values change from -1 to +1. So that's a very handy way of understanding how your input manager works. As you press the left arrow key or the A key, horizontal input goes negative all the way to -1. Or if you press the D or the right arrow key, it goes to +1. So what you're going to do is you're going to add another public float variable called horizontal input. In your update method, you're going to call the horizontal input variable. You're going to set it to the input for our input manager. And you're going to get the axis that's horizontal, so we can get those left and right arrow keys. And then last but not least, in your transform.translate, you're going to multiply the entire equation by our horizontal input. Now it's your turn.